Welcome to the Cabin Culture Podcast, where we spend a little more time diving deeper into all the fun parts of cabin culture. I like to think of this as both the material and imagined expressions of how cabin lovers, dwellers, builders, and designers wish to live a more simple and authentic life. Today, we're welcoming Ina, a 25-year-old chemist and Airbnb host whose Riverside cabin in Concrete, Washington offers breathtaking views of the North Cascades. While many episodes focus on the joys of cabin ownership, today's conversation tackles a scenario that keeps many hosts awake at night. What happens when disaster strikes? Ina shares her harrowing experience of receiving a call that her cabin was on fire after guests checked out without extinguishing candles, and the subsequent 7-month battle with Airbnb's AirCover to receive compensation for the damages. From the initial shock and frustration of dealing with defensive guests who refused to acknowledge their role in the incident to navigating the complexities of insurance claims and restoration work, Ina's story offers valuable lessons for hosts about emergency preparedness, documentation, and maintaining resilience through challenging circumstances. We'll explore how she managed cancellations during the long restoration process, the specific changes she made to prevent future incidents, and why, despite everything, she still finds joy and purpose in hosting. Whether you're a current host concerned about worst-case scenarios or someone considering entering the short-term rental market, this conversation provides practical advice and emotional reassurance that even in the darkest moments of hosting, recovery is possible. Let's do it. Ina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm so excited for a couple of reasons. First of all, we have not had many hosts from the Pacific Northwest. We've had just a couple. And so I love digging into the difference in cabin culture on the opposite ends of the coast, because we're like almost in the same place, but literally on opposite sides of the country.
Yeah.
But I also found you for something that happened at your cabin that I think will be interesting to dive into to help other hosts think about what we do when the worst case scenario happens. So we're going to dive into that. And I hope that that's going to be helpful for folks who are listening. But before we get there, we're going to leave everyone in suspense and instead start with a little background so they know exactly who we're hearing from. Can you take a second and introduce yourself and also tell us about your cabin?
My name is Ina, and I work as a chemist full-time, and then my backup job is being an Airbnb host. My Airbnb is located in Concrete, which is a pretty small town in the Pacific Northwest, right along the river. It's absolutely beautiful out there. The North Cascades National Park is right down the street, well, 45-minute drive, but close enough. So it's a beautiful area. We have the mountains, we have the rivers in the Pacific Northwest. It's just breathtaking. We got the fresh air, and it's a beautiful place to be out.
Are you from there originally, or what brought you to that area?
I was born in Ukraine. I moved to Washington when I was 2, and I've lived in this area ever since. So it's been like 20 plus years here. And that area, I just fell in love with the North Cascades. It's one of probably my favorite mountain ranges in Washington. And Washington is very diverse. We have the Eastern Washington, which is desert-like. We have the mountains. We have the ocean. We have everything in Washington. But the North Cascades were like my favorite mountain ranges in Washington. So when I was out there, I'm like, I want something here.
Yeah. Now, as an East Coaster, I don't know many people who, you know how like you hear the popular places and everyone's going here. I don't know. I've never been to Washington, and I don't know a lot of people who have been to Washington. So I'm curious about your market. And are most of the folks from the Pacific Northwest coming specifically for the National Forest, or are you attracting people from across the country and internationally?
I am attracting people all over the US.
Okay.
So I have like a map in my Airbnb of the whole state, and people are just putting pins where they're traveling from. And I got people from everywhere. I have from Florida, from New York, from like Missouri, from random places. I got some people from Hawaii. I think people are coming there for the national park, especially during busy season, but I'm attracting everybody's flying in. When it's slow season, it's more locals, but
what is slow season for you all out there?
Slow season is January to like April. The national park is closed because of the snow, so there's less people traveling in.
Okay. I feel like that's snow season almost everywhere unless you're near a ski place, because in
Yeah.
Maine that's the same thing unless you're like really close to one of the ski places. When was your first introduction to cabin culture as a human? And then when did you first start dreaming about owning your own cabin and kind of entering the short-term rental world?
I just liked the idea. I love hosting, like having people at my house, being able to take care of something, making experiences for other people. And after I got my job and I started saving money, I'm like, what do I invest in? What can I do
Mm,
that's fun? And it would
mhm.
be like coming across people on Instagram or YouTube who are talking about their cabins. And I just wanted to do that, to provide people with an experience. And it's not just providing them a place to stay the night. It's making it a whole well-rounded experience where they can make beautiful memories. And I have people start celebrating their marriages there, their birthdays, their bachelorettes. So you're just attracting
Yeah.
people and giving them a place to create these beautiful memories.
Yeah. This is interesting. I haven't heard many people talk about entering this world because of seeing the example of like it as an investment and an investment that's kind of fun via social media, Instagram, and YouTube.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering, I feel like there's also almost an intimidation factor about starting that way because you've seen so many ideas. So it's kind of hard to be like, okay, what's going to be different about mine? So how did you approach that in terms of like you'd already seen some examples of how it was being done? How did you think about what you wanted to contribute in a different way?
I started off seeing a lot of very successful hosts, but everybody made it sound so easy. Like, you should do
Mm,
this, and all you
yeah.
gotta do is all passive income, right? Isn't that
Mhm.
what you want? Like passive income, you're just sitting there doing nothing, and then just money
Yeah.
rolls in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that
Has
was
it been like that for you,
definitely
Ina? Me
definitely
neither.
not what it's been like. But I've come across just a few examples, and I wanted to not look at it as just a money stream because it's not. It's very hands-on. I wanted
Yeah.
it to make it more personal for those people who like connecting with the host. I like responding when people are telling me about their experience of, I just lost my mom to cancer, so it's so nice
Yeah.
to be there, and this is exactly the stay I needed. I like connecting with people on that personal level. And I've had my fair share of Airbnb experiences that weren't great.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
wanted to do the exact opposite of that.
That's so interesting. Do you ever have guests tell you, this is by far the nicest Airbnb I've ever been to?
Yeah, I have a
Which is
guest book, and
yeah.
people write, they're like, "This is exactly what I needed. I couldn't have asked for a better place." People leave me like private messages of, "Wow, this is the best experience I've had."
Which feels good, but then knowing that this is not what all when people tell me this was their first Airbnb experience, I'm always a little bit like, "Ooh." Like, I'm excited you had a good stay, but like and not in a bad way. By design, they're all different. Some are just meant to be highly functional and not necessarily like a curated stay. But there
Mhm,
is a lot of variety in what Airbnbs offer. So I do think we can learn just as much from the ones that we stay in that aren't what we're trying to create
mhm.
as are the ones that give us inspiration for what we're trying to create. So you saw all these different YouTube videos and Instagram and you thought this is something that I could do. What was your next step? Did you think I want to build? Do I want to renovate? Do I want to buy? What did you do next to make that happen?
I didn't want to build, especially as my first cabin. I'm still really young, so that was very intimidating.
Yeah.
But buying and renovating was what I wanted to do. I have
Yeah.
5 brothers, so I just got manual labor with me. And all my brothers have done construction and renovation work. So I knew I wanted to buy and renovate something into my dream cabin.
Yeah.
And then it was just house hunting. Me and my parents would just sit in the car and we'd go drive around, look at all kinds of cabins.
Oh,
And
your parents did this with you? Do you mind me
yeah,
asking how old you are?
I'm 25.
Okay, you are young. I love that for you.
I bought
Okay.
the cabin at 23. So
Wow. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
I don't know that we've talked to anybody who's been able to invest in a cabin that yeah, was it your first house or was it
it
still a
was
second? So
my
your
first.
first house was an
Yeah.
investment.
Yeah, I am blessed to have really great parents who are very supportive, and I lived with my parents, so I didn't have to like pay rent or anything. My
Yeah,
parents were like, "If you want to do this, we'll support you. Support you buying a house and investing in that way." And so me and my parents would just get in a car, and because my parents have bought houses before, I had no idea what I'm looking at. I'm
right,
23, house hunting, like
right,
what do I look for? I didn't even know you need to check the age of the roof until my
right.
dad's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you should go out on the roof and take a look when it was last changed. You don't want anything leaking out
Yeah.
there." So we just go house hunting. Anything that I thought was interesting, I'd send the Redfin post to my parents. I'm like, okay, I guess Saturday we'll just house hunt. And then
Yeah.
when I got to this property, it was right on the river, and it's
Mm.
like an instant connection. Like, we've seen so many, but this is the one I want.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, did your parents, have they invested in real estate, or was this a new thing for your whole family?
They've invested in real estate, but like renting. Nobody in my family has done short
Okay.
term. Actually, no, my brother did do short term, but his market is very different. He's just in a busy town. I wanted to create like where people travel to, while
Yes.
he's just like a house in a busy city that people are like visiting family or
Yep.
work related trips. Very different clients, very different
That's my
audience.
point, right? Like Airbnbs can serve different purposes
Hmm.
in different places and have different quality and it be fine, but yours is meant to be more of a destination.
Yeah, yeah. And then the area where I'm in, it's a very small town, so there's just like one motel down the street. So there's
Yeah.
not even that much accommodations. And when I was looking at the market, when I was like researching how many Airbnbs, there was only 27 Airbnbs at that moment. So I'm like, the market is that there's
It's ready
potential.
for me. This is
Yeah.
just that Freeport was the same way. There were so few. Tell me how you did your research to begin with to know that this was a place that not only did you like and want a cabin, but also that financially made sense for an investment.
I like that it was close to a national park because national parks do attract a lot of travelers, hikers, people who like the outdoors.
Yeah.
And I wanted mine particularly to be waterfront because there's a lot of Airbnbs that are beautiful, but there's how do you compete with that? How do
I
you make
know.
your cabin stand out, and
Yeah.
make it like when people are scrolling, how do you stand out that they're like, I want to stay in that one
Yeah.
versus like the other 27 Airbnbs in the area. So I knew I wanted a unique feature, and because it's right on the river, that was one of
Yeah.
my selling factors.
Yeah, and there's, like, only so many places that can be right on the water, so I just feel like
Exactly,
that's
yeah.
such a compelling piece to it. How did you know when you found the right cabin?
I just felt it. I walked there. I'm like, Mom, I all the other ones you visited, I'm like, my brain just goes, I need to fix this, I need to do that. If I want to attract people, here's like a list of things that need work. This one, I'm like, I love it for what it is. It does need work, but it was like an instant connection. I'm like, this is the one. It's hard to describe because of how
Mm,
instant it was. It's as soon as I saw the river, I was sold. I'm like, the river is beautiful. It has mountains in the back, and then I looked, and the interior needed a lot of updating. It was built in the 1990s, so definitely needed some work. But instead of seeing it like as ugh, I need to fix everything, it was like I want to make my dream cabin happen here.
yeah.
And then like all of the inspiration just came as soon as I saw it.
Yeah, everybody says this, it was just a feeling, and that's so hard to tell someone who's, like, in the process of looking or thinking about it, they're like, "Okay, but could you help me a little bit more than that?" And it's like, "No, just trust your gut," I
Just
think.
trust your gut, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so I'm gonna ask a financial question because what's tricky about knowing that you wanna renovate is you're looking at all these properties and you're comparing price points of the properties, but you also have to calculate in how much you're going to spend on renovation to get it ready to rent to other folks. How did you approach that tackling part of the process to figure out, can I even make an offer because there's kind of this unknown that still needs to happen?
Hmm. Well, it helps that a lot of the renovation costs, like manual labor, came from my family who didn't charge me. So going in there, I had my brother who has a construction bill. He's done so many renovations at this point. And it was just consulting him and seeing like what are the
Yeah.
things I can keep versus what things need immediate attention. So
Yeah.
my kitchen was outdated, but it was not like I need to fix this ASAP or nobody's gonna rent. Or
Yeah.
like changing the house color, right? Painting the house. That's much less expensive than changing your bathrooms and
Yeah.
kitchens. So I was seeing what can I do to make it look better without redoing the whole entire thing. So the kitchen, we've just repainted some of the cabinets. My cabinets were already white. They just needed little touch-ups. My
Okay.
bathroom, it was full of wallpaper. Like remove the wallpaper, paint it, and then I painted
Uh-huh.
my bathtub at that point because it was dark blue and it was kind of whack. So I just painted it black. So things that you can do that are not that big of an investment yet.
Yeah. So a lot of it for you was more aesthetics than it
Mhm.
was foundational structural work.
Yeah, yeah. At least my first renovation. Then after the excitement happened, we redid more of the
Yeah.
cabin. I always knew I wanted to eventually do the bigger remodels, but it was like after I save up,
Yeah.
after I run my Airbnb, see how it's working before I invest even more money. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like we gave it a year to trial it, see what can I save from that and reinvest back
Yep.
into the
Yep.
property.
I think that's how a lot of people think about it, which makes that first year kind of hard because
Yeah,
you're excited that you're rented. At least this is how I felt. But we made almost no money in that first year because I had so many things I wanted to continue to add that I was just pouring anything we made was just going back into it. So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about your first year and how that went for you.
So the first year was, the first few months are kind of slow when you're just starting out. I made just enough to cover my mortgage. I mean,
Which we should acknowledge is also a success.
yeah, the first month I think I only covered half of it, but then the next month of hosting, I covered the mortgage, and I started when slow season ended. So my first month was March, April, May,
Yeah.
and usually it picks up in the springtime when people have recovered from the holidays and are able to travel again. So
Yeah.
I had just barely enough, and then I started social media, but it's not great. It's really hard to run social media and make your cabin attractive on there.
Yeah.
But starting out slowly, and then as you say, just reinvesting. It's buying supplies. It's, oh, we have run out of this. The towels got stained, so it's just constant, just reinvestment. But my summer season, like my peak, I was actually able to make money on top of that, and I was saving it because I knew I wanted to eventually renovate and do more
Yep.
things.
So then tell us what happened next.
So then comes December. And when you are starting off, you want to max out your occupancy, right? You want to book out as much nights as you can,
Mhm.
especially because December things are starting to slow down. You do
Yeah.
have that Christmas weekend that is usually booked up, but everything else it was empty.
Yeah.
And I decreased my prices to like around like $118 per night, and I get a last minute reservation. And I'm like, it's for the same night, somebody's coming there, same day, prices are very cheap. And I'm like, okay, it'll be fine, right? And then so I talked with them, and everything seems to be going good. And then they stay there. My house was already decorated for Christmas. And being a first time host, I made my mistakes with decorations. I had candles in my like as part of decorations, and they've been there for around a month already, and nobody has touched them, nobody has burned them, so I didn't really think
Yeah.
much of it because my cleaning lady comes and nothing has been burned, nothing, so I didn't
Yeah.
really think about people doing what they did next. But this group, they come, they light every single candle, and then, which is fine, like if you blew it out,
Yeah.
but we didn't. And I had a fireplace there, like a pellet stove, and I had a fire starter. And I usually keep that on the ground. But the day that they left in the morning, they lit all the candles, and then they put the fire starter next to the candle on top of my mantle. And my mantle had like a garland, it was really pretty. And then they checked out and did not burn out the candle. So as the candle dripped, as the candle burned, it caught the starter fluid on fire. And well, they checked out. They're not there anymore. My cleaning lady comes and she opens the door and whew, smoke. She immediately calls 911,
Yeah.
and they show up and they're like, if you came just a little bit later, this house would have been gone.
Totally gone.
Totally gone. So the fire department, the fire marshal comes, they write me a report, they take pictures, and the cause of fire they have determined was candles that
Yeah.
the guests didn't burn out when they checked out.
Okay, so this is everyone's worst nightmare. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, what was it like that day? How far from the cabin do you live?
I live 1.5 hours.
Okay, so did you immediately go up or were you
Yeah,
just okay?
my cleaning lady calls me and she's like, Ina, there's a fire. And she's like, you can hear the panic in her voice, you can hear
Oh
the
my
stress in
God.
her voice. And she's like, I called 911, they're on their way. I just wanted to let you know. And so I left work and I just started driving up there.
And when you got
And
there, what was happening when you arrived?
when I arrived, the fire department was gone by then. My cleaning lady was, I think she was still there. And we looked and everything covered in smoke, the smell, the house is like the walls are black. You can see where the fireplace was. Like the candles were left on the mantle. So I just took a whole bunch of videos and pictures because you do need
Yep.
documentation for all of this.
Yep.
And then there's not much else that I can do. So I started researching. Well, Airbnb has, their Airbnb
Right.
cover, and
Right.
they say that, we will cover up to $1 million. So then the next steps was calling them, seeing how do you start a claim?
Yeah.
What do you do? What are the next steps? And it's like such high adrenaline, like in fight or flight mode. Like you're not registering it. You're just like in complete shock that
Yeah.
this was my little cabin baby, my first one, and I loved it. I loved hosting. My guests have been amazing up to that point. And then it was just a process of starting it. And I did
Okay,
not.
I have questions about that, but I
Yeah.
think if I'm putting myself in your shoes, my first reaction is probably anger at the guests who did this, but they've checked out. Like, this might seem like a dumb question, but like, did you ever message them? Do they
Oh,
even know?
I did message them.
What did that look like?
And
How do you even do that in a way that assumes the best, but like is also like my house is on fire?
yeah, so I messaged them and I took pictures and I sent them to them. I'm like, can you, because I didn't want to come across too accusatory because I
Right.
don't know the full details. This is the same day. I don't have the fire
Right.
marshal report yet.
Right.
This is just, and
You're just like, help me understand what
yeah,
happened.
yeah, like what happened. So I am very pissed at this point. I've
Yeah.
wrote the draft like 10 times. I'm like, how do I approach this with the guests without raising their defensiveness? Because
Right.
I knew what happened. So I draft a message, I send them pictures, and the first thing they do is deny it. They're like, it wasn't us.
And you're like, but no one
Because
else has been there.
yeah, I'm like, nobody else was there. And it actually happened on that same day. I was doing some, like I needed to cut down a tree. It was going through my power lines. So after they were supposed to leave, my checkout time is 11 a.m. They called me at 12:30 saying they're checking out. So first of all, they had a late checkout that they did not tell me about. So the electrical company came to remove the electricity from my house so I can cut down the tree. So this happened around noon. They were still at the property, which they were not supposed to be. It was
Yeah.
all scheduled. They were supposed to be gone. And so they said, oh, it's the power company who lit your house on fire. They were there.
Oh, because
And I'm
there
like,
was someone else who was there.
they were outside. They had no reason to go inside the house. They
Right.
didn't need to do any, they didn't need the power grid, nothing. They were just there to take down the wire.
Right.
And so like, no, they should not have been inside. So they deny it. They call Airbnb trying to get a refund.
They tried to get a refund?
They
Why?
tried getting a refund because electricity was cut off after their stay. And I'm like, this is ridiculous.
That's a bold move.
Very bold. And so Airbnb calls me, they're like, yeah, we got a request for, I'm like, no, I'm not giving them a refund. I'm not even earning anything off of them. It's $100, but it's the principle of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, they literally burned my house. They caught my house on fire. And the audacity to ask for a refund.
Yeah, because this is so interesting because at the end of the day, it's not like the guests, even if they did do it, would ever have to pay for all the
Mhm.
damage because that's what insurance is for. That's what Airbnb cover
Yeah.
is for. So this is why this is such a tricky area because it's like, do you even reach out to them? Because at the end of the day, they're not going to pay for anything,
Mhm.
but it's still your home and you feel this sense of like violation almost that this happened. So that's why I wonder. I don't know what I would do, but I feel like I would want to communicate with them somehow and let them know, like, did you know
Yeah,
this
yeah.
happened?
Yeah, and I know it was probably not intentional. I don't think they had, like, intentions. It was accidental, and
Right.
it's also trying to come to terms with it's an accident. It was a
Yeah.
mistake. They
Yeah.
messed up, but also their messing up resulted in a house fire, which
Right.
how do you balance that of, like, it's a
Right.
mistake, it's okay, but there's consequences that I
I'm
need to
still
deal with.
upset about it. It's kind of like a
I'm
car accident. Like, oh, you look
yeah,
down at
yeah.
something and you hit someone else and like, yeah, you didn't do it on purpose, but someone could be injured, your car could be ruined, someone could die. Like the consequences are still real and at the end of the day, you are responsible for them, even if it's
Yeah,
an accident.
yeah, and then after I told them that I'm gonna be starting, like, told them of the process. I'm like, I'm gonna be starting a claim with Airbnb. This is what I'll be doing. And then after that, they're like, this is not right. We are lawyers and an attorney. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything to me.
No.
I know what I need to do, which is get documentation. And then I had like a restoration company come and give me quotes. And got, submitted that, reached out to the fire marshal to get the official documentation. Then I started the claim. And at some point they were like calling me, but I didn't want to pick up any calls. I wanted written communication.
Oh, yeah.
So
Wait, the guests were calling you?
the guests were
Oh,
calling me
yeah.
on my purse, and I kept on declining it. They were angry. They were text messaging me. And I'm like, I prefer to communicate on Airbnb because I need documentation. I
Yeah.
don't want to hear anything from you at this point. I'm pissed off. Anything you say is making it so much worse because instead
Yeah.
of being like, we screwed up, I'm so sorry, they're like, it wasn't our fault. It was the electric company. We are attorneys and my wife's a lawyer. I'm like, I don't even know how to process that part.
Right. Right. So then because I guess I'm surprised a little bit that they're so adamantly defensive because it's my understanding that you're not asking them to pay for it out of pocket. You were just trying to get a better understanding. Theoretically,
Exactly.
Airbnb cover is going to pay for it. So it doesn't even matter if they said, "Oh my gosh, we left the candles lit." That is a mistake, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have to pay for like the entire remodel of the
Yeah.
house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not even sure why they were getting so defensive. They sent me a picture of like, oh, this is how we left our house. But they forgot to even block out the timestamp of when that picture was taken, which was taken at 8 a.m.
Yeah,
They
so
checked out at 12. I'm like,
right.
I don't understand why they were so defensive, but after it was making me even more mad, so I just stopped all communication. I didn't really need to communicate with them
Right.
at any point. I didn't get any more background story of what happened. Like talking to you is just triggering me. I need to be dealing with the insurance now.
Right. Right.
Talking with you is not going to get me anywhere at this point, especially because they are like refusing to admit any, like take any fault with it.
Right.
And I guess coming from a lawyer background, it makes sense. You don't admit fault until.
Yeah. But this is very relatable for anyone who's been through any difficult guest experience. This moment, the whole experience is not necessarily relatable, but this moment of tension with a guest who is either over communicating or aggressively communicating. And I do think I've only had that happen once, but I did also find I hit a point where I had to remove myself from it. Like
Yeah.
my attempt to have a conversation about it didn't de-escalate anything. And so for your own sanity, for your own well-being, you have to just kind of say, okay, I'm going to take next steps to figure out what I need to do for my business and property, but communicating with you is not helping. So I guess the
Mhm.
part that would be really helpful for folks is what did the next part of the process with Airbnb look like? Both communicating with them about what happened in these guests, but also getting AirCover to activate. Did it activate? Yeah, what came next with Airbnb? If you're dreaming about a cabin build, or are in the midst of a build, or you just bought a place and are getting ready to host for the very first time, regardless of where you are, sometimes you just need a little help along the way. Shared experiences from someone who's been there, advice from someone who's learned a lot of lessons the hard way. That's me. Or a cheerleader as you finish up. All of these reasons are exactly why I started offering cabin consultations to our Instagram followers and friends who could use some specific one-on-one help. I can't promise to solve all your problems, but I can promise to be transparent about our build costs and process, our organization and project management systems, our favorite and least favorite tools for renting, how we market, and how we found ourselves with almost 80,000 Instagram followers and 100% occupancy in our first year of hosting at Cozy Rock. So if that sounds like it might help you, feel free to visit us at staycozycabin.com or on Instagram at Cozy Rock Cabin and sign up for a time to chat there.
Yeah, so then I called the Airbnb support team and they were helpful in telling me how the process works. So you first start with going to the reimbursement center and setting up a claim of like, you're gonna ask for money back from reimbursement, then you describe the damage. But the important part is getting as much documentation as you can.
Yeah.
So this included, I didn't open the claim the same day. I waited until I had a restoration company show me these are the expenses to restore your house to the previous condition.
Okay.
So I had them come out. I messaged the fire marshal to get their report that has cause of fire, because proving that it was the guest's fault is going to be the most important thing.
Because will they
Airbnb,
not cover it otherwise?
the whole process was 7 months before
Oh,
I got
wow.
reimbursed. They was the most stressful, the most painful, the worst period was dealing with Airbnb cover. You would think that it's all nice on paper. right? It's a nice thing to advertise. We cover up to $1 million
Right.
in damages, and like maybe they do. My experience, terrible.
Now, question, and this might be naive because I've never dealt with this, but how much were you expecting to be covered by Airbnb? And then how much did your own insurance cover? Because I would assume if you have homeowners insurance or renters insurance, that
Mhm.
that would also cover the property. So was it like 50-50? Airbnb does half and they do half? Or like, how do you file claims to both of those?
So I just filed with Airbnb. I wanted to see what are they willing to cover before I get my
Okay.
homeowners
Was there a
insurance.
reason for that? Just for anyone who doesn't know, I would have no idea what to do.
Um, Not in particular. I honestly didn't know what to do. I've never dealt with this before, and
Yeah.
my first was file with those people who caused it. Airbnb advertises this. I'm like, I'm gonna take advantage. I'm gonna see where that gets me, see what they're willing to cover, and if it's not enough, then I'll file with my homeowner's
Yeah.
insurance. So that was my thought process of I'll start off here because the fire did happen with Airbnb guests.
Yep.
See where it takes me. If it's not enough to restore my Airbnb, I will get my homeowner's insurance
Yeah.
involved as well.
Because my understanding would be I've never had a fire, but I did live in a home in an area that got broken into a lot. My house was broken into 3 or 4 times. I was held up at gunpoint. So I filed like claims over a period of time, not knowing that if you file too many claims, you become a liability and they can actually blacklist you. And then you can't get insurance anymore. And so that taught me that then the next time someone broke my window, I was like, I would rather pay the $500 to replace the window myself, not go through insurance so that it's not on my record. So I'm wondering,
Mhm.
I don't know if AirCover,
This
but I'm
was
guessing.
This was something that one of my families, also like one of my brothers, recommended of like if you are
Yeah.
filing these large claims, your insurance can also go up. I'm like,
Yeah.
I will do that if needed, but I
Right.
don't want to be paying more for insurance for something that was not
That's
even
right.
my fault.
That's right. And if it's through Airbnb, I'm just talking this through so that anyone
Mhm.
listening can think through
Yeah,
like, yeah. Okay. So you went through AirCover first and it took 7 months for, so did you have to pay out? Cause I'm assuming you want to get the cabin back up and running as soon as possible because you're losing rental like
yes,
income.
I wanted to, and I was very naive. I thought this process would take much sooner than in the beginning. They said, oh, we do like 60 days for small claims, up to 90 days for large claims. It was not 90 days, it was 180 days. It was 7 months. This house fire happened on December 1st, and I got my claim approved on July 3rd.
Wow. So this is just getting that going through their process to get it
Yeah.
approved to cut you a check. What took so long during that time?
Um, I wish I knew. It was terrible communication with them. I kept on calling them every day, and I would also recommend for those who are dealing with Airbnb cover, bug them every day, and then they switched claim reps a few weeks in, and nobody bothered to call and tell me that. So my claim was stagnant for weeks until I started calling. I'm like, I haven't heard an update. They're like, oh, well, your claim rep is no longer works with us. Here's the new one.
They didn't.
Nobody reached out to me. No, I didn't even know that my claim agent that I'm trying to reach via email, via calling, is no longer with the company. Until I'm
Yeah.
like, I need a supervisor. And getting in contact with them is very difficult as well because they have the automated voice message, and then you just like pick an option. And
Yeah.
then depending where you get, it's just not you can't get a person on the phone,
Right.
which is the most frustrating part. And then when I finally got in contact with my new claim manager, he's also a supervisor. So I'm like, can I talk to your supervisor? Because you are taking like 4 or 5 months to get this. He's like, oh, I am a supervisor. There's nobody else that you can talk to.
Well, you're not
And
Brian Chesky, so so give me who your boss is. You've got to
yeah,
have a
no,
boss.
I did. He put another supervisor like in the emails, but she didn't ever reply to anything.
Yeah.
So he said he was very busy, and thank you for your patience, and thank you for calling me every day. It keeps us on the toes, and I have these other people I have to work through, like who are approving claims. And he's like, I'm doing my best, and please be patient, and thank you for calling. And this went on for around 7 months. Around maybe a month in February, they sent their own, like, I think probably somebody who works with the company to check out the damage and corroborate my
Your
documentation anyway.
photos and yeah.
Yeah, my photos, my like the restoration cost and what it would be like. And working well with this, the guy who came to my house to take a look at everything, he lived around 3 hours away and he was working on other claims at that part. So I got in contact with him and I'm like, if you want your job easier, here's what my restoration company estimated. You're
Uh-huh.
gonna have to make a layout of the house, but he already did it.
Here's what I already
You
have.
want to use it? And he was like, "Thank you so much. It's gonna save me so much work." And so,
Ina, this is so smart. You understood the system and you were like, this guy doesn't work for Airbnb. He just wants to get his job done. I've already done all of this. Why don't I just make his life easier? That was smart.
yeah, and so because we had this pretty good relationship with this guy, I sent him what I wanted because my restoration company did a very good job of getting me the quote that I wanted, and I knew I'm gonna restore it to whatever I want. And he was very detailed. So my quote, my estimate was like, this is what I want. This is what I need. This is what they'll do for me to restore everything to the previous condition.
Yeah.
And I sent those documents like via email to the guy who was corroborating, and he was like, "I'm so thank you so much."
So
And
he
blah
never
blah
even came out to do it. He just
blah.
used
No,
that stuff. He
he
did.
came out
Okay.
to do it, but he just said, "I'm gonna just approve everything."
Yeah.
And so then he got in contact with Airbnb. He's like, "Yeah, her estimate is really good. We'll keep that." And my restoration guy did such a thorough job that he had nothing to even add or do anything.
Yeah.
So he just forwarded, he just copied everything, and he's like, "Yep, this all works. This all makes sense."
So while you were waiting for all of this to go through, were renovations actively happening or were you waiting in order to get that check to kick off the renovations?
Um, I waited because my restoration company recommended for you to wait because they have instances where people start renovating and then they decide to send a second guy over to,
Hmm.
double check the first guy's work. And so he's like, what you don't want is to fully renovate your house. You're running a business, and then you have this active claim that's saying you need money to renovate.
Because they're like, clearly you can afford to do this. You don't need the money. This doesn't feel
Exactly.
urgent.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But
my restoration company gave me that, and it was very hard because I still had got bills to pay. I still got my mortgage
right.
to pay without that extra source of income.
Right, right. And then what were you doing about guests who had Christmas booked at the cabin? Or like, I'm assuming you had to message all of them shortly
Mhm.
afterwards and say, we don't know. Did you cancel them and how far out? Because you were thinking maybe this could be done in a couple months, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I emailed like as a well, all of December, I emailed basically the same thing. I'm like, I know you were having plans. My house caught on fire. Unfortunately, I am not able to accommodate your stay. And most people were very understanding. I think only one or two guests were like clearly visibly upset, like in the messages, but most of them were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like when you're done, I would still love to stay at your house. Message me then. Maybe we can still work." Most of people were just very
Yeah.
understanding and very kind. A few handful here or there, but like, what are you gonna do? I'm not gonna.
What a healthy dose of perspective. If someone were rude to me in that situation, because it bothers me so much when guests are upset now. But
Mhm.
if my house had caught on fire, I'd be like, okay, that like I can't even take whatever you're feeling is valid, but not my work to do.
Exactly, yeah. And it just comes, you draft your messages to be like, "I thank you so much for understanding. I wish it wasn't like this," and you just
Right.
framing
Obviously. Yeah.
it,
I wish my house hadn't
framing
burned
it,
down
yeah,
too.
yeah, just framing it in a kind way. And I hate
Yeah.
disappointing people. I'm a people
Yeah.
pleaser, so doing that to people really was difficult.
Yeah.
Especially because people booked out months in advance to stay here. They made vacation plans. They made
Right.
travel plans.
Right, especially for Christmas. I know personally that would be the time of year, and summer would be hard, but Christmas is like people are planning their
Mhm.
holidays and they're envisioning what that's gonna look like and to have to I mean, obviously not your fault, but I can understand the disappointment. Now, one thing that I know we have in our personal homeowners insurance for all of our rentals, but I've never had to use is loss of rental insurance. Did you have that in your plan? Were you able to use that? Because what it'll do is it'll pay us for any reservations that we lost during that time if there's damage to the property. Did your
So,
insurance have that?
Airbnb covered was able to cover
Oh,
some of them, not all of them. So only the reservations that I already had made prior
yeah.
to the fire.
Okay.
So I didn't think people like my reservations in May would fall through. So I let people book in May, after the house fire, like May, June. June was fine. My house was renovated by then. But like April, May, I didn't block out those just yet because I thought it would take only a few months, not 7 months.
Right. Right.
But Airbnb did cover reservations that were made prior to December 1st. So all of my
Okay.
Christmas ones, they paid out for it.
Okay. Better than nothing. But
7
what
months
that
later, they paid out, but they paid it back.
Right. This is what I always wonder about when it comes like when Hurricane Helene hit, one of our cabins was impacted. And the good news was our cabin wasn't damaged at all. The bad news was the road accessing the cabin was washed out and we lost power for 2 weeks. So we had to cancel a bunch of reservations. But our loss of rental insurance only kicks in if there's damage to the actual property. So we
Oh,
never saw any of it.
yeah.
So I'm always just curious what other people's policies are. And if something goes wrong, is it only reservations you had to cancel? Is it the amount that, because this is what you're facing, the amount that you would have expected to come in during that time, you're losing. Even if they hadn't booked yet, it is likely that someone might have booked mid-December for a March stay and you're not
Yeah,
getting any compensation for that. So it isn't,
I took an L on that. I did not get
yeah,
any compensation for blocking out my calendar for that many months.
right,
Maybe if I did more research into my homeowner, or perhaps maybe getting in a business insurance or something else, that would have probably helped me out. But at that time, I didn't even know that was a thing. I was
right.
just dealing with this, and
Well, this is what I'm looking at, and I haven't done it yet. I'm just saying this for anyone listening, but the business insurance is something that I'm now looking into because business insurance will cover, and I don't know the exact words for it, but like interruption to business. And so I
Mhm.
do think that had that happened with the road being washed out, that if we had business insurance, that could have helped to cover some of that. I have not done enough research. I don't have it yet, but it's something for people to think about.
Yeah, I didn't do my research, and I've been only hosting for like 6 or 7 months
Right.
at that
It was
point. So
so
all of this was
early.
still very new. I never had to deal with insurances. This was my first time filing a thing with
Right.
insurance.
Right. Was there ever a moment where you were like, "I can't do this anymore. Maybe I don't
Yeah,
wanna host?"
I've thought about it, but there was never a moment where saying I don't want to host anymore because those 6 months were really fun and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But this also just comes like, who is pouring into you, or where are you getting your like peace and calmness for? And being like,
Mm.
I'm a Christian, so a lot of it just came out of like spending time with prayer, making peace with things I
Yeah.
cannot control, and I've had my moments where I I wanted to be done with everything. I'm like, I'm
Right.
just screw it. I'm just gonna do everything with my own money, and who cares about the insurance?
Right.
But then just like spending some time of reflection and be like, it happens. We'll
Right.
get through it. I've gone through other hard things in life. This is not
Right.
the end of the world, and it's
Right.
finding a way to reground yourself and refocus on,
Mm.
finding peace with the situation.
Yeah, one step at a time. We were talking about this on the last episode of the podcast of just this idea of like resilience, and that what happens is when you get through hard things, oftentimes people don't think about the resilience that it takes because they might see that a fire hit your house. So in your case, yours is a bit more obvious. You are obviously resilient. But those moments where you could have given up and didn't is what got you to the other side. It's not just like, I don't know. It took a lot between December 1st and then when you relaunched to even make it there, I would imagine.
It
So
was.
we have 10 minutes left. And I think maybe what would be most helpful is I think a lot of people in their heads who go into hosting get really scared of a lot of things. We hear this a lot with wood stoves. I do a lot of cabin consultations and folks will say like, I don't know whether we should do a gas stove or wood stove or no stove because I'm scared of fires. I think there's a lot of unknowns that you don't actually learn about how to protect yourself until you've
Mhm.
been through it. So I think what would be really helpful is like knowing what you know now and having gone through it. Are there like 3 or 4 things, piece of advice or things that you would do differently having been through what is a lot of our worst fears?
Well, for one thing, I had a wood pellet stove, which involved
Mhm.
making an active fire, and I haven't
Yeah,
had issues. But I completely removed that. No more candles, no more decorating. Like thinking
yeah.
in advance, because I hate to say this, but some people don't have common sense. And I
Mhm.
hate to say that about some of our guests, but some of them like leaving candles burning. Like you would think that as adults who are
Yeah.
able to book a place, you would think that they'd blow them out, but they
Well,
didn't.
Right. But even forgetfulness, right? It's like
Yeah,
blind spots. The thing about forgetfulness is that you just forgot. It's like
yeah,
very
yeah,
hard to come up with a strategy to like not forget. So it's
yeah,
kind of being proactive about what are the blind spots that humans have or just the
exactly.
things
Yeah.
that are hard, you know?
Yes, yeah, that's a really good point. And so a lot of the things are just thinking in advance of like, is this actually user friendly? And if,
Yeah.
having really detailed instructions on how to use appliances properly. And I think just making my whole cabin more guest proof, that if
Mhm.
something is forgotten, that it's not going to be detrimental.
Yeah. Were there any other changes you made to the cabin to help prevent something like this? Like obviously not leaving candles out, but I'm thinking like Nest smoke detectors that would alert you on your phone as soon as it happens, or like were there any other things that you learned from this changes that you've made?
Not too many. I just removed most open flame. My stove is still propane open flame, but I removed, like, my fireplace now is with a remote control. No
Yeah.
more fire starters, nothing like that at the house
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Okay, so we're now over a year past when the fire happened. What has the last year been like for you? You went through the renovations and it sounds like you reopened in June. So what has that's almost been a year. What has the last year been like for you post fire? Have you restored your faith in humans?
Oh,
have
yes,
you been able to
100%.
Okay.
When I was hosting my first guest, it was like, "Oh my goodness, I missed this so much," and my first few guests, they were amazing. My first few guests
Yeah.
all loved the stay. I didn't have I think if I had a bad guest as my first guest after reopening, that would have probably sat so ill with me, but my
Yeah.
next few guests were absolutely beautiful stays, so
Yeah.
smooth and flawless, great at communicating, and they were celebrating things. So just was like, I missed this. I miss
Yeah.
having people. I missed hosting. I missed connecting with people. And then busy season hit, and it was like reservation after reservation after reservation after reservation
Yeah.
saying
So
they
you
turned
got
over,
right back into it.
right back into it like nothing
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, what a story. I just feel like so many people worry about this and there's something, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way. There's something almost comforting in talking to you and knowing that like it you can get through it. It's
Mhm.
like it is like the worst case, but sometimes when we just imagine all the worst case and we never have it experienced, then you don't know that like actually even that will be okay. It will take
Yeah,
time, it will take perseverance, but even that
100%.
you
Yeah,
can get through.
100%. It's coming with a mindset of, even if you know things, and things always go wrong. I think every host can say,
Yeah.
certain things happen, things went wrong, the electricity, there's always things that are going to be happening. And even still to this day, I deal with things not working, breaking down, like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's, how are you gonna move on from that? How are
Yeah.
you gonna deal with it? And just having this, I am prepared for whatever happens. I will not lose my cool. I will message, and having like kind of like an outlook, more positive outlook. Like
Yeah.
everything, you can work through everything. It's not the end of the world. You can, file with insurance and get your money back. You can fix things when things go wrong. It's all about good communication with the guests also. So when things go
Mm.
wrong with the guests, it's how do you maintain professionality as a host?
Yeah.
How do you keep that, you know, things de-escalating situations when you are
Yeah.
dealing with that stuff? It's
Yeah.
knowing you can get through things. And just like deep breath, we can work things out.
Yeah. You have been through more in a short time of hosting than most hosts who've been hosting for much longer. But I feel like I have to believe that that makes you an even better host because now if like someone brings their dog and leaves a bunch of dog hair behind, it like might be annoying, but it's like you just have such healthy perspective on like because it is hard in the early years. It's
Mhm.
hard. Even my cleaner once, like our cabin is always left in such good shape that one time she sent me pictures and was like, I can't believe the condition they left it in. And I saw the pictures and I was like, that's not so bad. I mean, but relatively it was bad, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so sometimes our perspective is our reality and you've been through something that then helps you really understand when to
Mhm.
freak out and when to just kind of like let it roll off your back.
Yeah, most things now in comparison, I just roll off. My cleaning lady will send me pictures. She's like, "This and this happened," and I just joke around like, when you think you've seen it all, something new just happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And at
And
least they didn't burn my house down.
yeah, sometimes we just need to vent. Like when guests leave the place like terrible and don't clean up after themselves. Sometimes my cleaning lady just needs to vent to get it out, and then
That's right.
she recoups and she's like, okay, the house is all ready for the next guest.
Yep.
We cleaned everything, we got through it. But it's like letting it out, and it's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to
Yeah.
feel anger. Don't take it out on other people, obviously, but
Yeah.
vent out. Have somebody in your life who you can like
That is
share the
so
burden with.
real, Ina. Yeah, because we as hosts have this community, if you found it and tap into it, that you can
Mhm.
talk to, right? But I
Yeah.
never really thought about this, that there are so many cleaners and caretakers and folks who are working on the ground. Sometimes it's the host, but sometimes in my case, it's not, right? Like my cleaner
Mhm.
is one of my good friends, but she needs someone to vent to too, and doesn't necessarily have the same community to talk to about that. I've never
Yeah.
thought about that.
Yeah. Usually my cleaning lady, she send me pictures and angry messages when there's something's completely wrong. But I'm not physically at the property, so I
Right.
don't absorb it. I
In the
like I
same
feel
way.
it, but I don't absorb what actually happens
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Ina, thank you so much for chatting and for sharing. I know that like this isn't necessarily the most uplifting story to share, but I really appreciate you sharing it because I do think it's something that sits in a lot of our heads and we don't talk about it or process it. And so I'm hoping that this will help some folks think about how to protect themselves, but also if something bad does happen, to help them know that it will be okay. In the end, it will just
Mhm.
take, it will suck for a while.
Yes, 100%. Things will go wrong. It's finding a community, finding somebody you can share the burdens with, and everything will be okay eventually, somehow. But things will always work out.
I love that. What a great place to end. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you liked what you heard, feel free to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or share some of your favorite parts over on Apple Podcast. If you have feedback or suggestions for the future, you can also find me on Instagram at Cozy Rock Cabin. Looking forward to next week.